No. I'd like to welcome everybody to the June 21st, 2022 meeting of the Borger City Council. At this time, the chair does recognize a quorum, so we're able to conduct business this time. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and the invocation to be led by Councilman Lawrence.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Father God, we come together, Lord, asking for your wisdom and knowledge how to conduct business for today, for this Borger, Texas, Father. Lord, we ask that you just guide us and direct us, Father. And Lord, in all things, let us be willing and obedient to your call. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. This time we'll receive a presentation from Michelle Johnson on the Park Book House project.
Thank you. This has been a great project. On June 10th at 2 p.m. in the afternoon, the book house was officially placed in Huber Park, and so far so good. My husband and I are policing it every week, filling it with books. Things are moving along rapidly. Part of that is because of park recreation, and I think that's great. Some kids have left candy and thank you notes, so that's kind of cool. You know, so all in all, not so bad. Haven't come across any inappropriate stuff inside of it, you know. Anyway, so we think it's a huge hit. My husband, Guy Johnson, works at Chevron Phillips, and the new engineers group at Chevron takes on a community project each year, and Guy asked the group, which is led, is led by Jesse Parkins, if this group would entertain the idea of building a book house for one of the other parks in town, because in the previous meeting when I was presenting this, and it took so long to get it done, we were asked to do 2 other book houses as well. There were other parks in need. And so Guy and I just have felt led just to continue to go ahead and try to facilitate that. On the 14th, we took Jesse and Austin, her husband, at Huber Park and showed them the book house, and then we took them to the North Hughes Park and also the Buena Vista Park to kind of give them an idea of this is, you know, not just this big park, but here are the other parks, some of the other parks that we wanted them to see. I gave Jessie the park manager's name, and she has his number, so she's in good hands. They will meet actually tomorrow for the first time. She will make the presentation that she would like for this to be what they do for the community. And then she'll get back to me. She would love to know what park that y'all would like for it to go to next. She doesn't have a preference either way, and if there's one more than the other, feel free to let us know or let Jason know, and he can lead her that direction. So. On Friday, this last week, on the 17th, I approached Peyton Machine with the idea of a metal book house. And I hope to hear from them very soon. Ansley Peyton and Angie Peyton are big followers of what I'm doing right now. Unfortunately, I don't know why, but they're keeping an eye on how the situation's going. They've got kids, and they're extremely busy right now. They were thinking maybe by August they could facilitate a book house, and so that would, again, I would need another direction as to which park you would like that to be put in. So, and I just want to thank you for the opportunity. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay.
As I told Michelle earlier that my daughter has been out there, and my grandkids saw the books and they were like, we want to read a book. So they sat out there for quite a while and read. So they loved it, and it's a blessing. So thank you.
One at Endem, Guy and I are planning on policing these book houses. We'll solicit help with those on the other side of town for at least 3 years. We'd like to see how that goes.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Michelle.
Okay. Moving on to item 5, Questions and comments from citizens? Any questions or comments from citizens? I see none. Moving on to item 6, the city manager's monthly report.
Seems like these keep coming quicker and quicker.
I agree.
But we're now quite a bit more than halfway through the fiscal year, and so we're still doing quite well if you look financially. This is the last month where we should see expenditures over revenues in the general fund, because we did bill out the industrial district payments for the year. We've actually received the biggest one of those already back. So we're doing well with that, but revenue continues to remain quite a bit above the 5-year average, with expenditures now just a little bit above the 5-year average. Most of the expenditure increases that are above the average, if you remember this year, we did schedule a $700,000 transfer out of reserve to pay for the engine, the new fire engine that came in. So that's kind of that, we make that transfer each month. So we budgeted that $700,000 a year, and so that equates to about $50,000 a month. And so that is a part of that, why that's above the 5-year average. Otherwise, operating expenditures, what we consider operating expenditures, not including capital, are actually still below the 5-year expenditure, fueled mostly by personnel shortages in several departments, and we'll talk a little bit about that as we go through. So we're still doing well in the general fund. Water and sewer, that chart is very visual on water sales increases over the 5-year average. Again, most of that is still driven by the increase of the water intake by Phillips 66, although we are starting to see it a little bit in May, and we'll see more in June as our water increases, as it's warmed up and dried out. Expenditures there are still proportionately under the average. Of course, they're over the average because there again, remember, as we produce and sell more water, there's more cost associated with that, so we're still tracking well with that. Sales tax was up another 8% again for our June payment, so we're still averaging about 14% year over year average, so that is driving a good chunk of that. That sales tax increase is also allowing us to propose a tax rate reduction again in this coming budget year. So just kind of a reminder of the importance in what that sales tax does actually get you. So we're excited to continue to see that grow. Hotel occupancy tax and venue tax continue to remain above the 5-year average and above our budgeted amounts. And so that we're going to see a little bit of reserve built up there, and that's good as we start making those payments on the dome and that project. So it is still being funded quite well from that. And then you'll see some depletion in the hotel occupancy tax balance as we've started paying down, made those debt payments and started wrapping up that dome project. But we'll talk about that. Since I'm done with financials, we can talk about projects. And so the dome, for the most part, is completed. We are working with Nicole we still have some long lead time items, so it's not 100% done. We had kind of been delaying a grand opening event until it was 100% completed. Now, some of those items are being pushed into September, so we don't want to wait for kind of an open house tour. So right now, I think we're looking at the 23rd of July for a ribbon cutting community event, kind of open house, maybe just some food trucks in conjunction with the Makers Market, and a little ribbon cutting open house so that the public can tour it. We are starting to have some events there. I kind of think that Nicole might not have completely realized what she has signed up for. But she does have some help. So that is Lincoln next to her, which is our intern that we've got sponsored through the Ogallala Commons program this summer. So we're great to be giving some experience to some of our community and get Nicole a little help as we have some of the other events coming up. Sidewalks are progressing as part of the TUF. If you haven't been down to 8th Street, the project this year is connecting Paul Belt into Cedar Street, improving the sidewalks and curbs a little bit there. If I don't remember how many of y'all remember, but TxDOT has a sidewalk project slated in 2024 for Cedar Street. So we'll be getting sidewalk up and down Cedar Street, so that will give a safe sidewalk path from Cedar Street into Paul Belton as we go next year. We are still on the wait list for the test wells being drilled up in the Northwest well field for our well expansion, so that project is still progressing. We're just kind of like anything else, everything's just kind of slowed down with some of that, it does look like the cost of that has inflated. We are getting ready to put out bid packets for the collapsed sewer line and the project that you'll see probably in the next 30 to 60 days for bid award is we have engineered from 4th Street all the way to 1st Street, but we're going to bid it from 4th Street to 2nd Street is what we have to do. And 2nd to 1st, we'll get the last of the remaining concrete line. So we're going to bid that as an additive alternative, worried a little bit about what pricing might be, so then we can, see what the prices are and decide, how much, if we need to do more than what we have. So if we can afford to do more, go ahead and do that, we'll do that. But we'll have some more numbers looking for that. So we're still progressing with that. 10th Street, we have a meeting later this week to get an update on their preliminary plans. Once that continues, we'll start scheduling public engagement for timing. And when we get a little better hand on that, because we want to engage the businesses down 10th Street and other interested parties in that as we move closer. We are still working with TxDOT. We should, I expect to see that dedication or change of maintenance agreement probably in the next 60 days for them to hand over 10th Street. If you remember, we've agreed to take that for to be determined payment, since most of it is our responsibility anyway. But if we leave it under TxDOT jurisdiction, they're going to make us do parallel parking down 10th Street. And
Will we still be required to do half of it at a time?
that's without closing the road, we're going to do half of it at a time.
Okay.
Now, the nice part about it is 10th Street in that, in the section from Cedar to Main is wide enough to move 2 lanes of traffic to 1/2. So we will be able to maintain 2-way traffic. I think the timing that's going to be more interesting is based around the holiday shopping season with most of the businesses on the south side. I think we want to maintain the traffic on the south side probably during the peak holiday season. So we might actually tear up the north side first. And then that way, when we have to tear up the business side, it's at least maybe not holiday season. And so we'll try to minimize what we can. There's just, there's not a good way to really do street reconstruction. I mean, this is, and I know I've mentioned this a couple times, but I mean, we're rebuilding that street down to recompacting the subbase because a lot of it's failed in the subbase. And so the grade's going to change a little bit as we address the drainage with that area too. So, I mean, it's about an 8-month construction timeline is what they've got planned. So, I mean, it's not going to be without a little bit of pain, but.
Is Park Hill done with their utilities assessment, or that's still ongoing?
Or
where all the utilities are that crossed?
they've surveyed all of that.
They've
So that's,
surveyed.
yeah. So luckily, the utility crossing is just north-south there. So we don't have actually any utilities going down 10th Street.
Okay.
And so they just cross there, so we've got those identified at the intersections where they cross. So,
Okay.
so that's it, I think, for all the projects we have pending right now. We are still waiting on contracts from the Texas Park and Wildlife Department on the Huber Park grant. That should be done, they said, by the end of June, so we hope to see that pretty soon. Of course, once we sign those contracts, we can get the equipment ordered. With lead times and stuff on that, I don't anticipate that project being out for construction until probably later this winter. But we should have that new park equipment in place by next spring at least. We will be putting out to bid the Main Street project, which is part of the Phase 2 downtown revitalization, which is sidewalks in the 700 block and the building demolition. That should be going out to bid later in July with a contract award sometime in October as well, August. I've done that a lot here, messing October and August up. But so we are still progressing along with those.
I know the sidewalks and stuff there on 8th Street, they really look good. They're coming along very rapidly. I'm surprised how fast they're doing it.
Yeah, the contractor's been pretty good, and Winston at our director's meeting yesterday, I guess he was driving by and was actually saw the accessible ramps being well used. And so I think that's going to be, and that is a high use intersection right there. And our thought with some of that too was, since they kind of line up 8th Street to unload kids, if we can give them a nice, a little better complete sidewalk to get to the school, they don't have to walk down the street.
Right.
if they get unloaded there.
So I'm just telling you, I was impressed. It's very
I'm really surprised, it surprises me a little bit how much curb and sidewalk improves the look of a stretch of street.
Yes.
Yep. So we are excited to continue with that. Of course, we're working on refining our tough transportation user fee plans for next year, and that'll have some of that in the council probably in our August work session as we finalize the capital projects for the budget, since we did our prioritization. And of course, the 10th Street reconstruction project includes all new sidewalks and curbs and shared use paths, so that's going to make 10th Street significantly better.
And that'll retain the diagonal parking?
Yes, yeah, so we'll have angled parking. Actually, we'll end up having a little bit more because there's some areas that don't have it now that when we go in and improve the curb and gutter, you'll get some additional parking. And then we're working on that stretch is identified as a possible bike trail path in our Parks Trails Recreation Master Plan. And of course, Main Street is wide enough to mark with bike lanes all the way from 10th all the way to South Cedar. So it could make some sense to have, we're working through some of that, have a tie-in, a bike lane there to tie into Main Street and go all the way south. And with the sidewalk project that's coming with TxDOT, if they get the path there, we'd have a pretty good loop there. So that could be a pretty good shared infrastructure project to get us started on that loop that was identified in our trail plan.
Will we have to update any sewers?
We should not there. Most of the sewer up there is a little newer, and the old part's been gone. Most of our concrete sewers that we're having problems with still generally are, once we get across 3rd Street with the project coming up, the rest of them will be south of 3rd. So we've got the 2nd Street collector over kind of by the First Baptist Church, and in back behind Brown's. There's some concrete collector lines that still remain there that are identified in the 5-year plan to try to get those over the next 5 years. I know I've said this a lot. That's one of those things that are hard. You know, we can, if I plan on A, B will be the one that collapses. But if I plan on A, we've at least got the money in the budget, and so if the money's got to go to B first, you know, we're at least prepped for it. So we are still working through those.
It's one of the issues.
Yes,
It's one of the issues.
it's yeah. So going through the department reports, you know, communications, you know, all had some time to get acquainted with Deidre now a little bit. She's finally kind of, I think, somewhat acclimated, and we've been increasing our engagement on social media. If any of y'all are on Facebook and Instagram, you've probably noticed that. We've had some pretty good feedback with some of the things we've started to do on there, and we're excited to see that. She's finishing up on the communication plan. That was kind of a holdover that we should be going through soon, and before too long, I think we're going to start getting back on our videos highlighting city services and city employees to get that kind of out there. We're getting some pretty good feedback from that. Stella, City Secretary, and Court, they've going through some training, some personnel changes. You know, the court was involved in kind of our utility billing swap changes that's going on with all of that. So Michelle Haney, who was a utility billing clerk, has moved over now and has been training in court for 2.5 weeks to be the new court clerk, replacing Linda, who will be coming over to City Hall to be our citizen services specialist. And so she should be over here probably by the 1st of July. We're going to introduce her to the public in our next edition of the Boomtown Beat. And so as the citizen services specialist, remember, we're going to push out that one phone number for the city. You need anything from the city, this is the phone number. You don't need to remember different departments. Call this department, and she'll take care of it from there. We'll make sure that you get routed. She'll build the work order if it's something that just needs to be done, and we'll try to eliminate, you know, your message getting shuffled around on sticky notes, or, you know, being added to the proverbial list that may or may not exist. So we're definitely gonna try to tighten up a little bit of those, and I'm excited to get that going. It's been a little bit in the process as we've tried to fill personnel and all that. And I'll give Stella a little bit of props on some insurance claim work that she's done with the fire department. She's just been really busy with the fire department because she finally got tags for their new fire truck. Apparently, the state in Seagrave, you know, you try to go register a custom-made truck, it's not quite as straightforward as like registering a Chevy or a Ford. But we finally have tags, and so that's her persistence has paid off there, and doesn't make Mike feel so bad after waiting so long for the equipment for it that, I think he did finally get all the equipment before he got the tag, so, he wasn't the last thing to come in for the truck.
If anyone can do it, Stella can, that's for sure.
So in the police department, they do have 2 applicants in final hiring phase now, 2 certified applicants, so we are kind of slowly nicking away at some of those openings. They have 4 recruits. Remember, they started in May down at the police academy. Chief Davis went down to Levelland last week, 2 weeks ago. Checked in on them, so they're doing quite well, and of course appreciated having someone come in and show them how important they are to our community and the investment to us. So that was really good. If you probably also noticed on Facebook, the police department has been pretty active in training here lately. They had their school-based law enforcement training and the Force simulator come in, and so they've been refreshed on that, which is important. On our agenda today, you will see that the school district has proposed that 4th SRO, and so we've been working with them as we get ready for that, and we'll talk a little bit more about that when we get to that item. At animal control, our 3rd new animal control officer has completed his basic training. If you remember, we lost an animal control officer about 3 months ago, and so the new one, that he just has to find a place to test and should be good. And then they're also planning their next microchip event for August. So if you remember that, we try to do that a couple times a year to where we do low-cost microchipping to help make sure that if you lose your dog, we can get them back to you as quick as dog or other animal.
I noticed that we have a live release rate of running at 67%.
Correct. So that's come up steadily over the last couple of years. In municipal government, the live release rate's, important, and of course, a lot of cities we see, they try to go to that net zero or a zero kill shelter. Those are kind of a little bit of a misnomer. For the most part, if y'all remember, we do keep adoptable animals as long as we can, as long as we have space, and so we don't have a hard limit. But keep in mind, a lot of that 40% or that 38%, there are a significant number that come in that are injured or just, not adoptable. So we try to avoid the euthanasia as much as possible, but you cannot completely get rid of it. But working with shelter groups and everything, we do get over half, the vast majority of them adopted out. So
I was pleased with the number because I know we bring in a lot of feral cats, and they need to kind of cozy up to their potential owner if they're going to get adopted.
yeah. So they have been working on that, and the community outreach and some of those events help with that. Of course, we have in the HR department, we have a new HR director. Michelle Crump started after Byron's retirement, so she's been getting acclimated and been doing a really good job. She hired 65 employees last month, which is all that seasonal help coming in. So luckily, we were able to hire the lifeguards necessary to make sure our swimming pool open. A lot of cities have not been that lucky. But we do have seasonal help in the Parks Department and the code enforcement as well. So she got to hit the ground running a little bit with that. We've also she's been working with Brooks Training and Testing. I don't know if you know Christy Brooks, but she's a local business, so we've been moving our drug testing over to her. And so we've been working on forms and all of that stuff, and she has already started kind of prepping for the salary realignment that we've proposed in the upcoming budget to make sure that we're ready for that when budget gets here. The fire department, they're got their first meeting with our consultant June 28th as we get ready for our ISO survey. We've been talking about that a couple of times, so we are finally going down that process. I don't know if I've mentioned before, the last time when we moved to a 2, we actually were scored an 89. So a 90 would have been a class 1. So we're going to see if we can't find a way to pencil whip 1 point. I don't anticipate us going and get down. We've made lots of improvements both in the water system and in the fire department. However, a lot of times the way ISO works is if your water system is far better than your fire department, they take points away from you, which is generally our case because the fire department can't use 100% of our water supply, which we would never, to fully use our water supply, the fire department would be like, 6 engines on duty and probably 24 people per shift. I mean, it's not practical. It's just, I don't mean that bad on the fire department, it's just kind of how it is. But we should not, I have confidence that we will every bit maintain a 2, and I know Mike and I got our fingers crossed on that 1 point, maybe more, but we'll see. So they also were busy doing that out of school, end of school year kind of community outreach, you know. The kids like to have the fire trucks come to the parks when they have their parties, and I think they've probably washed a few kids once or twice over the last month. And I don't know what it is about kids and fire hoses and water, but I remember being overly excited about that too. So we also now have 2 hazmat incident commanders certified at the fire department. So that's a first in our history, so we're very proud of those 2 officers, Captain Walden and Jamie Hall, Assistant Chief Hall. So they also went out to the Lake Meredith first responders event that they had with the movie the other day, and so we're definitely outreaching through there. They also taught 66 high school students CPR last month, so we're pushing that up. They've also been scheduling their live fire training. If y'all remember, we been sending them, send each shift to Amarillo twice a year to get their 18 hours of live fire training. That goes into our ISO rating, and so we're pretty happy with that. They've also been working with pre-fire planning, which is part of the ISO rating, along with 3 safety standbys out at the Blackhawk Station for some of their turnaround activities. We have another one of our fire recruits recently finished and passed his state exam for the firefighting. So did he make it to shift yet?
We're waiting on the scores. He took the test, we're waiting on the scores.
So he's close. So that'll be the second one through. And so we've also hired one other new recruit. She's already got her firefighter certification. She just needs her EMT certification. So we will put her through her EMT class. Of course, we did lose one firefighter going to Pantex. Pantex has hired significantly lately, and that's been impacting public safety agencies around, municipal public safety agencies around the Panhandle. And so, and I'm working on getting y'all a little better list of what we've sent out to reimburse, for TDM to reimburse us on. As we talk about fire trucks and some coming items and some of those responses, we have about $630,000 outstanding in TxDOT reimbursements. So, you know, that money's there, and we do get significant revenue from that, and I'll get you a better update as we go through with that. The state says their goal is to reimburse within 90 days, but the last reimbursement we got was about 20 months. So, but luckily for us, you know, we do have the fund balance to absorb that, and it is an overall profit to us. We do make more than what we spend in those, so it is definitely good. In public works, they continue to, streets continues to try to keep up with water and gas cuts. You know, the gas company continues to do their replacements, which of course tears up alleys and streets. Water, this is the time of the year, I'll talk a little bit more about that in utilities for, you know, just some service line issues, which require repair in the streets. Street department has hired one new employee as well for a shortage there. We talked about the sidewalks on 8th, and they also have been constantly, if you see the little John Deere with the blue weed sprayer fluid going around, we are maintaining our weed spraying at the street edges. Code enforcement works down the alleys, but that is continuing in the streets. In the parks, of course, the book library was completed in Huber Park, and they're working with that project. We have switched porta potty vendors. So some parks have porta potties in them, depending on use in around town. So we were able to move to a local vendor that had newer porta potties. So if you've around one of those or used those, you'll see that those have been replaced out with some newer, better maintained porta potties. So we expect to get some better service out of those. And the parks also got their new stump grinder finally, and so that attaches to their skid steer. And so as we start our tree replacement program, going through all the parks, you know, the next part of that is to get those stumps out. So I know we've got some feedback on needing more trees. We know we need more trees, and those, you know, we are in a multi-year plan to replace trees in parks and try to get that going. So we are working through that. We are spraying for mosquitoes now after some rain. That was delayed a little bit because it was so hot and dry that even mosquitoes couldn't breed. But we are working on that now after a little bit of the rain.
On the tree replacement, what type of trees are we replacing with? Getting away from the elms or?
I'd have to, we're trying to get more local, depending on where they go. So if we can guarantee water in some areas, we'll get some bigger trees, but I think they've been trying to stick with red oak in some areas because those are big and give shade and are pretty
Hardy.
relatively hardy for this area with some water. And so we kind of can't plant as many as some people would like, because once we plant them, we've got to, you know, it's a pretty hands-on
Right.
task to keep that tree alive as it takes root. So we're trying to be very mindful of our personnel, you know, how much time and effort, because a lot of those sometimes have to be hand watered extra for a while. So we are trying to make sure that whatever we plant can be.
Right. I just knew that
Yeah.
there for a while, everybody was planting elms because elms were cheap. But then we had the big elm disease and stuff, and there's
And that's what-
decimating those, so.
That and the ice storm really took a lot of those
Right.
out, and we have the reason we're spending a little more money to buy a little more mature trees to plant, and so saving money and getting a younger tree doesn't help if 80% of them die.
Right. I agree.
And so we are trying to be a little more mindful with that. In solid waste, they finally got all the trucks back in working order for, we are still waiting on the you know, we've got the new side loader truck on order, and we'll talk some about their needs on this agenda as well. After our last Boomtown Beat, they kind of pointed out the self-help, or the first one with the self-help trailers, the bulk waste, they've seen an uptick in the use of those. And if you remember, you can call the transfer station, and we have those trailers that we will come set at your house, you fill them up, and then we'll come haul them away. So if you've got a lot of waste, I know there has been some confusion, and just so the council knows, I know I've talked to some of you, know, we've pretty much gotten out of the roll-off business. So a roll-off requires a CDL driver to set that roll-off. And so we were having to pull that driver from either a route or some other job. So those roll-offs were impacting our primary service. And so since there are multiple private options for roll-off services and construction waste, we felt it better just to get back to some of our primary. So the compensation for that for our residential customers is if you have a residential water account, we can do this bulk help where we bring the trailer and you can load up the trailer and we'll take care of your bulk waste. We're just kind of getting out of that private construction waste roll-off business. These trailers are fifth wheel, so they can be transported by any city employee that can drive a truck safely and with the trailer. So we're getting a little better luck out of that. And of course, recreation is now completely full as the pool and recreation programs are in full swing. The swimming pool's averaging about 150 attendees per day, and recreation program's been averaging about 95 kids a day. So those are both doing quite well. Emergency management, dispatch and fire marshal's office also been busy. We have submitted our cybersecurity training for the city now. If y'all remember, most of us got to go through that a little bit. Our newest member will get to go through that here shortly. But we're good on that. They've been working on getting the new CAD and RMS system implemented and trained with that, along with the new recorder. We have finally received documentation from Pantex on our weather radar. If you remember, we talked about partnering with Pantex for them to take over the operation of that and all the maintenance costs associated with that. Saves them having to buy one, and that we still get use and get ours upgraded. So I have those documents that we're currently going through. So I think that project is about to come to fruition. So we're excited about that. That gives us a pretty good relationship with Steve Kirsch, is Pantex's meteorologist now. So a lot of people probably remember him from Channel 7. So we'll have that nice line of communication there on our weather planning and emergency management aspects. So we're excited about that. We are continuing to work through our master drainage plan with the completion date of October. If you remember, we were awarded a FEMA grant for that 2 years ago. And so it's going to go through and identify water flows and drainage projects prioritized that need addressed for there. So we're finally getting kind of close to that. Dispatch continues to plan for the National Night Out, which is the public safety community outreach program for August 3rd. If you remember a while back, I think we talked about y'all about what we call Borger Project Shield, or Project Shield, is we used to partner with the National Fire Safety Awareness Council and send out donation letters to get community fire safety information. So this year, Pender proposed doing it ourselves. So because with the Fire Safety Council, we could only buy things that were on their list of approved things. So with the donations coming straight into our education outreach, we can buy a wider variety of community outreach, education, and knickknacks. So that has gone out. We've started getting donations for that. I'm excited to see what that will do. And we do have staff CPR trained as well. Finance, we are still working through the audit. As I kind of informed you, we got a little bit of bad news that our auditor had suffered a medical incident, and so we're hoping for quick recovery there. But getting ready for that, there has been some GASB changes. If you remember, GASB is the Government Accounting Standards Board. So that's the accounting board that tells us how we are supposed to do things. So they've made some changes on some accounts that we have to keep more detailed reconciliation records on. So Scott's been busy going through that to get ready. Planning and Development and Code Enforcement. So they have been working, the Planning and Zoning Commission is getting ready to consider a replat of the North Park Shopping Center. That's in connection with the planned Starbucks development. So that will be, is still progressing. Of course, we're getting finally close to the Unified Land Development Ordinance. I know that if you haven't, you will shortly, but we send out mail letters to every property owner in the city to notify them of these changes. Since this will change the zoning regulations of all city property, and will possibly change, it will change the zoning because we've got whole new zoning districts, so we have to send out the mail notice to everybody. Based on some of the phone calls that we've been getting, I will say a few things, just so y'all know in case you get those questions too, or those watching. This will not impact your taxes or the amount of taxes that you do or the amount of taxes you have to pay. It does not change your current use of your property or what you are currently doing with your property, and in most cases is just modernizing and updating the code. So the vast majority of things are staying the same. A lot of the biggest changes are like in the downtown area, where we have allowed more residential type uses and more mixed uses. The 1964 code was built around downtowns that were commercial centers. Downtowns in 2022 are more mixed use, multi-purpose centers. So it opens up a lot of that. I know one thing we have a lot of problems with that's going to go away is right now we restrict how much you can build upon the back half of your property. And so the code right now is no more than 50% of the property behind the back half can be built upon. A lot of that used to go to drainage codes and things like that, but that's going away. So I think in most ways it's going to make it easier. Of course, there are still plenty of regulations to make sure that we protect the integrity of neighborhoods and it's the community safety and the neighbors and all of that stuff. But we will have the guidebook. It's much more visual, and we will have presentations again, like we have both in front of the Planning and Zoning hearing next Monday, and then it'll be in front of the council on July 5th. But, this has been a 19-month project, and we've had multiple community outreaches and public hearings and Facebook engagement and surveys. And so I'm sure some people are caught a little off guard now that they're getting mailers in the mail, but it's been ongoing, and I think I'm pretty pleased with the involvement we've got. This is definitely not staff or this council enforcing anything on anybody. But if anybody has any questions, that borgertx.gov/ULDO, all the draft code is there. Like I said, for the most part, the codes are very similar. Another change I know that I think is positive is in RV parks right now. We require RV parks to have bathrooms. That kind of goes back again to 1964. Most RVs did not have bathrooms in them. So if you go back and you look at what an RV was in 1964 to what an RV is today, so one of the biggest things that we deal with in the city is people having to get a variance to the bathroom requirements. And so we're changing some of that to where if you've got less than 50 RV slots, you don't have to have bathrooms. But if you go over 50, you have to have bathrooms. I think that also gives people maybe an opportunity to start small. If they've got land for 150 slots, but they don't have money for bathrooms, they can just put 49 slots in operation, start getting a little revenue, and then plan the phases out. So I think overall, it's going to be much better. It's definitely going to be easier to explain with pictures and graphics in the new guidebook. And as we continue to push housing as a major incentive, it's going to help us there. Code enforcement continues to be busy. Last month, they mowed 16 miles of right-of-way. And we are continuing to go through alleys. They picked up 43 tons of debris from alleys last month. So far this year, we've already picked up 394 tons of trash and debris illegally placed in alleys. So our goal was 400 tons, so we're definitely going to be past that. So we are making progress there. And then in utilities, our lab was audited. You know, we had to maintain our own water lab to do our own bacteriological testing, and we do provide that service to other communities. So it has been had its regular audit, and everything looks good there. And then, of course, they are also working on gathering the information necessary for the ISO fire survey, as the water part is a pretty good chunk of that. So lots of good progress again. But that's, I think, all I have for this last month. Questions or concerns?
I had a neighbor approach me the other day about the alleys. He walks his dogs up and down the alleys and stuff. And he was talking to me about this trash that was in the alleys. I said, you wouldn't believe how much trash is being picked up in the alleys right now. Tons and tons and tons of it. And I told him, he said, well, who do I call? I told him, call Stella.
It's going to be Linda real soon.
I said, call Stella, and she will probably be able to direct you in the path that you should contact whomever. I said, but I'm not involved with that, but I know the people that are, and they are making headway, believe it or not. They're making headway and picking all this stuff up. And he said, well, you can't prove it by me, but I said, call Stella. So anyway, Stella, if you get a call, it was from me, okay?
Yeah, they were able to clean 44 blocks last month. When you put that, there's about 6,000 blocks.
Right. He also asked me if there was any way we could put a reminder in the water bills.
We have an insert that will
Remind people
probably,
they're required to take care of their own half of their alley. I know I've recommended that before myself, but I've never gotten a letter, but I maintain my own alley. So.
yeah, I'll work on getting that. We have, because we've sent it out the last 2 years, we haven't done that this year. It'll probably be the August timeframe now, because since we've been adding the Boomtown Beat. We are in the process of changing out our inserter folder, and so since we're not inserting return envelopes anymore, the next inserter folder I want to get will then be able to insert the water bill and 2 inserts,
Right.
which will greatly increase the amount of information we can send in the water bill. And we've talked about videos. We do have that alley video that I think we're about to reshare on our Facebook page to remind people
I know you
about
have
that.
recommended to me, well, can you put in there, it's like a little threat, you know, you will be fined X amount if if we have to pay for it to be picked up, you're gonna get the bill.
Well, what we've talked about doing, I think, is in most alleys, once we get them cleaned up, we might go ahead and just start spraying them. I think in the long haul, it'll be a lot cheaper for us just to spray them probably twice a year in most cases, but, there's cost to that, so.
Right. That was my only comment.
What else?
When he addresses me, I can say, I did it.
Good.
Well, thank you for your detailed reports, and I will echo that we've done lots of staffing with construction, plumbers, electricians, about all the ULDO code change stuff. So this is just another, almost the final outreach of here's your shot if you've got concerns. I think we will have good answers. All right. Moving on to the consent items, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Any discussion?
No, I don't have anything.
No comments, questions, discussions? Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
I move to approve consent items 7 through 10.
A second.
All in favor? Aye. Motion carries. Item 11, Consider and take appropriate action to approve the purchase of a 2023 Kenworth semi-tractor from Texas Kenworth Company LLC in the amount of $138,129.17, utilizing Sourcewell Cooperative Purchase Contract number 060920-KTC. Mr. Spradlin.
And so I'm going to talk about item 11 and 12 together because
Okay.
they go together kind of. 11 is the truck and 12 is the trailer. But as I've warned you a little bit at the last couple meetings, I believe, that we might bring some items to you that are for the 2023 budget because it's taking so long to get things delivered. Kenworth, this truck would be the transfer truck. So this is the semi-tractor that hauls the compressed solid waste to the landfill from the transfer station. So we operate 2 of those to keep up with trash. This will be replacing a 2009 truck. And so these are pretty high mileage, pretty heavy use trucks. Not quite like the side loaders, but in close proximity. Right now, they are taking orders for 2023. Once they close off the order book, if you don't have an order on the book, you're not going to get a 2023 and it'll be 2024. So that is necessitating why we're looking at this. This was in the proposed budget that y'all saw last month. Kind of the one bright spot, if you want to call it a bright spot, is we had budgeted $200,000 for this truck. So the quote came back at $138,129. So one of the few times we maybe over anticipated a high. But keep in mind, last year we had thought it was going to be 110. So it's still about $28,000 over what they had been. Item 12, when we get to that, that's just the trailer that goes with it. If you remember, we lost an axle. You know, we do not currently have a spare rolling floor. When we say rolling floor, walking floor, you know, the floors of these move, so when the trucks get there, you know, they turn it on so that it slides all the trash out. And so that's what we mean by walking floor or live floor, however you see that. So when that axle went down on that other trailer, we were down to just one trailer, which caused some backup at the transfer station. We did have a spare that we thought would last for a while. It was not in as good a shape as we thought, so we ended up getting rid of it. This will allow us, when it comes in, there will be no auction value from this because we will keep the truck that we just put the new axle on, or the trailer, excuse me, so it'll become a spare. We will auction off the truck. The last time we bought it, the newest trailer was bought 3 years ago, was $90,000, so this one's $112,003, so you can kind of see that going up. But there again, these are currently funded in the proposed budget that you have seen. We have not adopted those budgets, but no payment will be made until next year anyway. These are all at the very least 9 months out, and they could be 14 to 18 months out. So really I don't feel there's a downside to doing this. You will be locking us into making sure that we keep these in the budget and that you approve a budget that funds these. But I think these are mission critical items that we would have to fund anyway. But I'll entertain any questions on those if you have any.
I have none. Okay, I suggest, since they're using different purchase, that we do each motion separately. So I'll entertain a motion on item 11.
Okay, I move to approve the purchase of a 2023 Kenworth semi-tractor from Texas Kenworth Company LLC in the amount of $138,129.17, utilizing Sourcewell Cooperative Purchasing Contract number 060920-KTC.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. All right, I'll entertain a motion on item 12.
I move to approve the purchase of a Travis Live Floor trailer from Performance Truck Houston for the amount of $112,003.99, utilizing Borger Cooperative Purchasing Contract number 599-19.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. All right, item 13. Consider and take appropriate action to approve the purchase of a Dodge 5500 Type 5 brush truck and a Ford F550 Type 5 brush truck from Daco Fire Equipment for the amount of $413,758, utilizing buy board cooperative purchase agreement contract number 651-21. Mr. Spratt.
So if you remember last year, we had identified a new brush truck in the CIP to replace an aging brush truck. Since that time, we had one that was totaled in a traffic accident responding to the Potter County fire. So we kind of need two. If we order two at the same time, there is a small multi-truck discount. Luckily for us, they have one chassis on the ground. So the chassis generally have been the long lead items. They had the Dodge 5500, which happens to be the same chassis as the one that was totaled. They had been planning on making a demo truck with, and so they've agreed to allow us to use that chassis. And so that's why you see two different types of trucks. So the second truck is a Ford. It will be replacing a Ford and is a little cheaper, but it's no we have to order a chassis, so that one's gonna have an extended lead time. The Dodge is on the ground, but of course they'll have to build out the skid unit and the back end of that, but so that's kind of why they're different. Of course, we will have insurance revenue from TML IRP to cover the cost of the one that was totaled, and then the second one is budgeted in the proposed budget that y'all have seen, but it likely won't be delivered till the end of next fiscal year either. There again, if we order them at the same time, we're saving $4,000. It's still $4,000, and since it's got such a long lead item, if we wait till 2020, the fiscal year to order this, it won't be here till the next fiscal year. So there again, since these are kind of more mission critical, public safety related expenses, we're proposing to get these on order. Again, they won't be paid for until they're actually delivered.
Not having these vehicles, does that affect our ISO or
These do not.
because they're not city related?
Well, so your ISO response is tied to like building fire suppression, and since these are not used for, and the way ISO works is based on your hazard, they calculate what they call a needed fire flow. And so based on your hazard, you have to have enough apparatus to pump the GPM, the gallons per minute of that needed fire flow. So last time, and it might change, but last time, as I recall, our needed fire flow was 3,750 gallons per minute. So each engine pumps 1,500 GPM. So we have 3 frontline engines because the ladder pump has a pump in it, so it counts towards that. So we have 4,500 GPM plus another 1,500 in our reserve. So we're able to meet the GPM with what we have. You can take these into use for that, but these pump what?
500 gallons.
I don't think they're gonna go on the grass rates, it's gonna be restrictions.
No, I mean, if you didn't have, like, if for some reason the tornado came out and took all of our structural engines and we had to say that this grass rig was our structural engine, yes, we could count that towards our gallons per minute, but these pump like 250 gallons. I mean,
Yeah.
so losing these doesn't impact our, if we lost that 1,500 gallons per minute of a type 1 structural engine, yeah, we'd have a problem,
Okay.
but it does impact operations, considering wildfire is one of our biggest threats in this part of the country. We're exposed to much more threat from wildfire than structure fire, but at least for insurance standings and all of that, it shouldn't be a big problem. Luckily, we have been able to expand the grass rig fleet over the years to where we did have 3. When I first got on the council in 2005, we had 1. And so if you lost 1, that was it. So we're, not that we're great, but we're not horrible either. But we hope with the chassis on the ground that we can have that first one maybe in 8 months.
So these fire trucks have the ability to pass through water from hydrants, because they have a 500 gallon tank, as I recall, when I read the specs, but it's how many gallons per minute, so they have a pass-through ability if they're tied up to a hydrant.
You don't connect these to a hydrant, you'd have to manually fill the tank.
Okay. All right. So that's a real workaround.
Yeah, it's,
Okay. That was what I was joking on. I'm thinking $500 tank, 500 gallon tank, and. okay.
yeah, you'd not,
Gone.
Though that's not that difficult. But we don't have any just pure water transport trucks. The county does.
County
county has several of those. Some of them are pre-positioned. Is that correct?
They're different county precincts.
Yeah, they're pre-positioned at the precincts. Okay. All right. Thank you, sir. All right. We're on item 13. Any other discussion, comments, questions? Okay. I will entertain a motion.
Consider and take appropriate action to approve the purchase of a Dodge 5500 Type V brush truck and Ford F550 Type V brush truck from Dayco Fire Equipment for the amount of $413,758, utilizing buy board cooperative purchasing agreement contract number 651-21.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All in favor? Aye. Motion carries.
Now, make sure he doesn't go get rid of that chassis.
Item 14, consider and take appropriate action on the interlocal agreement between the Borger Independent School System and the City of Borger for the fiscal year 2022-2023 School Resource Officer Program. Mr. Spreadley.
So the city's partnered with the school district for longer than I've been here for the school resource officer program. For many years, it was one officer, and it's slowly grown to where it was last year with 3 officers. So this year, I prepped the renewal contract. We do this each year, and I sent it to the school district. And when I sent off the renewal contract, they inquired about the possibility of adding a 4th officer. So with that, I called Chief Davis and made sure that he thought he could staff it even if we did it, and we thought it was a good idea. So I updated a contract with an option for the school district for a 4th SRO. This is a little different than the previous ones because with a 4th SRO, it added, it was taking the span of control and the supervisory scheme of things outside of acceptable limits. So the 4th SRO in this contract was priced as a sergeant's position so that there'd be a supervisor with direct supervision over those. If you follow FEMA standards, supervision, span of control should be 2 to 7 with 5 ideal. So 3 reporting to a sergeant that was also overseeing 3 other people. So we needed to do that. The school didn't have a problem with this. With 3 SROs, you had 1 SRO at the high school, you had 1 SRO at the intermediate middle school, which is 1 building, and then you had a 3rd SRO that was split time between Paul Belton and the Gateway Crockett campus. So with 4 SROs, that will be 1 SRO at each campus. So there won't ever be, barring vacation and things like that, there'll at least be 1 assigned to each campus on a regular basis. So I think after the events in Uvalde and some of the things going on with there, they thought that that would be very beneficial. The school district has seen this contract, and the school district has approved this contract. It's about $330,000 total. The school district's picking up the vast majority of that. The increase to us will be about $17,000 a year, which we will be able to budget for in the next budget. So I think that's about all I have for that, unless you have any other questions or.
I think it's a great idea. It's good. Me too.
We're not ready to discuss personnel. Is that still kind of?
You know,
Okay.
if you,
I just know.
that will be official on Monday,
Okay. All right.
assuming you approve this. I didn't want to get you.
Yeah. Well,
I reminded him that it's not completely approved, so.
okay. I just know that we need the right people, people that establish relationship with students, that students will come and see these SROs when there's a heads up. And I think for the most part, we've had that. And very critical. And I'll shut up. All right, any other discussion, comments? Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
I move that the interlocal agreement between the Borger Independent School District and the City of Borger for the 2022-2023 School Resource Officer Program be approved as submitted.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Item 15. In compliance with Chapter 551 Texas Government Code Open Meetings Law, the council will retire into executive session relative to Section 551-074 Personnel Matters. to discuss employment, resignation, dismissal, appointment, recruitment, and/or compensation package of the Borger, Inc. Executive Director. We are retired in executive session. Ready? Council returns to open session. There was no action taken during the executive session. So brings us to item 17. Consider take appropriate action to adjourn.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion is made and seconded. All in favor? Aye. We stand adjourned.
Are you still going to your OAPM meeting?
No, it's canceled, but I've got to hurry and get to Amarillo.